The drums were so loud that the ground was shaking. Fireworks burst in the sky. People were cheering and laughing. The whole town was dancing under bright lights and colorful flags. And that was when I saw her. Right in the middle of the fiesta. She was standing still while everyone else was moving. She wore an old white dress, but it looked burned at the bottom. Her long black hair covered her face. No one seemed to notice her except me. Then she slowly lifted her head. Her eyes were dark. Not just brown. Not black. Dark like an empty hole. The music stopped. All the lights went out at once. The drums turned into something else. A slow, heavy beating sound that did not feel human. And the people who were dancing. They were gone. The street was empty. The food stalls were broken. The colorful flags were torn and hanging like dead leaves. I was alone. Alone in the middle of what used to be the happiest fiesta in town. And the girl in white was standing right in front of me. She whispered my name. Daniel. I had never seen her before. So how did she know my name? Her hand reached out toward me. And when her fingers almost touched my face, everything went black. That was the moment I knew something was very wrong with the fiesta. Now I will tell you how it all began. It started 2 days before the San Mateo Fiesta in a small town in California. My family had moved there only a few months ago. The town was quiet most of the year. But when Fiesta Week came, everything changed. Bright lights were hung across the streets. There were banners everywhere. People practiced dances in the park. Kids ran around with balloons. My best friend, Marcus, was excited. He had lived there his whole life. He told me the fiesta was the biggest event of the year. You'll love it, he said. There's food, music, games, everything. At first, it did seem normal. We helped hang decorations near the church. The smell of grilled meat and sweet bread filled the air. Old ladies sat outside their houses talking and laughing. But sometimes, I noticed something strange. Some of the older people would suddenly stop smiling when they looked toward the old chapel at the end of the street. The chapel was small and made of dark wood. It looked older than the rest of the town. The paint was peeling. The windows were cracked. When I asked Marcus about it, he shrugged. That place? Nobody uses it anymore, he said. They say it's bad luck. Why? I asked. He lowered his voice. My grandma says something happened there during a fiesta long ago. But she won't tell me what. That night I could not sleep. I kept thinking about the old chapel. The next day, while everyone was busy setting up booths, I decided to walk closer to it. The door was slightly open. The inside was dark. I told myself not to go in. But I did. The air inside felt cold, even though it was hot outside. Dust floated in the sunlight coming through the broken window. There were old wooden benches covered in dirt. A small stage stood at the front. On the wall behind it was a faded painting of a fiesta celebration from many years ago. People in old clothes were dancing. And in the middle of the painting was a girl in a white dress. My heart skipped. She looked exactly like the girl I saw at the fiesta. Long black hair. Pale face. I stepped closer to the painting. Under it, there were words carved into the wood. She waited. They laughed. The fire answered. I did not understand what it meant. Suddenly, I heard a soft sound behind me. Like someone dragging their feet. I turned around fast. No one was there. The door was still open. But I felt like I was not alone. I rushed out of the chapel and ran back toward town. That evening, I asked Marcus's grandma about the old chapel. At first, she did not want to talk. But when I told her about the painting, her face turned pale. There was a girl, she said quietly. Her name was Isabella. She told us the story. Many years ago, during the biggest fiesta the town had ever seen, a fire broke out near the old chapel. People were dancing and lighting fireworks. No one noticed the small fire starting behind the building. Isabella had been inside the chapel, waiting for her family. When the fire grew, people thought it was part of the fireworks show. By the time they realized it was real, it was too late. They said Isabella never made it out. But some people said they saw her standing in the street during fiestas after that. Watching. Waiting. Marcus laughed nervously. That's just an old story, right? His grandma did not smile. The fiesta is loud, she said. It makes it easy to hide things. That night, I dreamed of drums beating slowly. I dreamed of the girl in white standing in the old chapel. When I woke up, I smelled smoke. But there was no fire. The final night of the fiesta arrived. The whole town gathered in the main street. Lights blinked everywhere. Music played loudly. Fireworks were ready. Marcus and I stood near the center of the crowd. I tried to forget the story. I tried to enjoy the moment. But then I saw her. Standing still. Not moving. The same white dress. The same dark eyes. No one else reacted. She began to walk slowly through the crowd. People moved out of her way without knowing why. The drums grew louder. The fireworks started. Boom. 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 Each explosion made her appear closer. She stopped only a few feet away from me. And she smiled. Her mouth opened wider than it should. Her voice was soft but clear. Why did they leave me? The air suddenly felt heavy. The lights flickered. The music slowed down. I grabbed Marcus's arm. Do you see her? I whispered. He looked confused. See vous? The girl lifted her hand. The fireworks shot into the sky. But instead of bright colors, the sky filled with thick black smoke. People began to scream. The smell of burning wood filled the air. The colorful banners caught fire. The booths started to collapse. It was like the past was happening again. The fiesta was turning into the fire from long ago. The girl in white stood in the center of it all, untouched by flames. She looked at me. Stay, she whispered. The ground trembled. A line of fire raced across the street toward us. Marcus finally saw it. He saw the flames. He saw the old chapel glowing in the distance, as if it had come back to life. And then, the fire surrounded us in a circle. We were trapped. The girl stepped forward through the flames. And she reached for my hand. Her fingers were cold. Not just cold like ice. Cold like something that had never felt the sun. When she touched my hand, the fire around us stopped moving. The flames froze in the air like bright orange statues. The people who were running and screaming became still, like mannequins in a store. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. Marcus was beside me, but he wasn't moving. His eyes were open, but he looked frozen, like time had stopped for him. Only the girl and I could move. She looked into my eyes. You can see me, she said softly. I tried to pull my hand away, but I couldn't. Her grip was gentle yet strong. Please, she whispered. Don't leave me like they did. The frozen fire began to change color. The bright orange turned into a deep blue flame. The entire street glowed in a strange blue light. The fiesta music was gone. Instead, I heard faint crying. It sounded like it was coming from far away, and also from right next to me. What do you want? I asked. Her eyes filled with something that looked like sadness. They laughed, she said. They thought the fire was beautiful. Suddenly, the scene around us changed. The modern booths disappeared. The electric lights vanished. The street turned into an old dirt road. The buildings looked older, darker. I was no longer in 2026. I was standing in the past. The drums started again, but they sounded slower and deeper. People in old-fashioned clothes were dancing. Lanterns hung from wooden posts. Children ran around with sparklers. No one could see us. It was like we were invisible. That night, she said quietly, I saw a younger version of her standing near the old chapel. She looked happy. She was holding a small basket of flowers. She looked normal. Alive. A man shouted as fireworks shot into the sky. Everyone cheered. Sparks fell onto dry wood near the chapel. At first, it was small. A tiny flame. People clapped, thinking it was part of the show. The fire grew bigger. The girl's family ran toward the main street, laughing and dancing, not noticing the smoke behind them. The younger Isabella turned back. She saw the fire spreading across the chapel wall. She ran inside. Why did she go back? I asked. My necklace, the girl beside me said. She touched her neck. There was a thin, burned chain resting there. It was my mother's. Inside the chapel, flames climbed up the walls. The door suddenly slammed shut. The crowd outside was too loud. The drums. The cheering. The fireworks. No one heard her scream. I felt my chest tighten. The fire surrounded the chapel in seconds. People finally noticed. But by the time they rushed over with buckets of water, the roof had already collapsed. The scene froze again. The blue flames returned. The girl looked at me. They danced while I burned. Her voice did not sound angry. It sounded hurt. Back in the present, the blue fire circle around Marcus and me began to shrink. What do you want from me? I asked again. She stepped closer. I don't want them, she said. I want someone to remember. The frozen people around us flickered like broken images on a screen. Suddenly Marcus gasped. Time started moving again. The fire roared back to life. People screamed. The banners were burning. The booths were collapsing. But this time, it wasn't frozen. It was real. Marcus grabbed my arm. Daniel! We have to run! The girl was still there, standing calmly in the flames. Remember me, she whispered. Then she disappeared. The fire around us faded in seconds. The street returned to normal. The banners were not burned. The booths were standing. The fireworks were bright and colorful in the sky. The music was loud again. It was like nothing had happened. Marcus looked at me, breathing hard. Did you see that? The fire, it was everywhere. So you saw it too? I asked. He nodded slowly. It felt real. But when we looked around, no one else seemed scared. People were dancing and laughing. It was as if Marcus and I were the only ones who had seen the fire. The rest of the night felt strange. Every time a firework exploded, I flinched. Every time I smelled smoke, my heart raced. When the fiesta finally ended and people went home, I felt exhausted. Marcus walked with me down the quiet street. You think it's over? He asked. I didn't answer. When I got home, I couldn't stop thinking about what she said. I want someone to remember. I opened my laptop and searched for old news about the chapel fire. There was only one small article from decades ago. It mentioned a tragic accident during the fiesta. One casualty. Isabella Reyes. Age 12. That was it. No details. No apology. No memorial. Just one line. Like she never mattered. The next morning, I went back to the old chapel. The sun was shining. Birds were singing. It looked harmless in daylight. But when I stepped inside, I noticed something new. On the floor, near the front stage, there was a black mark shaped like a circle. It looked like something had burned there recently. I knelt down and touched it. It was cold. Not warm. Cold. Suddenly, the doors slammed shut behind me. The chapel went dark. The air felt heavy again. The drums began to beat slowly. Boom. 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 I turned around. The girl in white was standing on the stage. But she looked different. Her dress was burned and torn. Her hair moved like it was floating underwater. Her eyes were darker than before. I remembered, I said quickly. I told Marcus. I read about you. She tilted her head. That is not enough, she whispered. The wooden walls around us began to creak. Small cracks of blue light appeared along the walls. What else do you want? I asked. Her face suddenly twisted in pain. They forgot me again, she said. After the first time. After the second. After every fiesta. The blue light spread across the walls like growing fire. The benches started to shake. Outside, I could hear people laughing in the distance, getting ready for another small celebration event that weekend. The drums grew louder. The floor beneath me felt hot. "I don't want them to dance anymore," she said softly. The blue flames burst from the cracks in the walls. They circled around me. The door behind me caught fire. And this time, the flames were not freezing. They were closing in. The blue flames rushed toward me. They moved fast, crawling across the floor like living things. The heat pressed against my face, but it felt strange. It didn't burn my skin right away. It felt cold and hot at the same time. I backed away until my shoulders hit the wall. "Please!" I shouted. "I remember you. I told people." Isabella stood in the middle of the chapel, surrounded by blue fire. Her burned dress floated around her like smoke. "They always promise," she said softly. "Then they dance again." The drums outside grew louder. Boom. 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 The walls began to change. They were no longer wooden. They turned black and cracked, just like the night she died. I could see shadows moving inside the flames. They looked like people dancing, laughing, clapping. My heart pounded hard in my chest. "I can fix this," I yelled. "I can make them remember forever." Her eyes locked onto mine. The flames stopped moving for 1 second. "Forever?" she asked. "Yes," I said quickly. "Not just a story online. Not just a search on a laptop. A real memorial. Your name. Your face. Every year." The chapel shook violently. Dust fell from the ceiling. Outside, I heard real screams now. Not happy screams. Scared ones. The blue fire suddenly pulled back from me. The door behind me unlocked with a loud crack. I ran toward it and pulled it open. The street outside was chaos. Small sparks were flying from the festival lights. One of the food booths had caught fire for real this time. People were running and shouting. Marcus was pushing through the crowd. "Daniel!" he yelled. "The stage wiring exploded! It's spreading!" I turned back toward the chapel. Isabella was standing in the doorway behind me, but no one else could see her. "This is your choice," she said. The flames behind her were growing taller. "If they forget again, I will remind them." A loud explosion came from the main stage. The big Fiesta banner caught fire. The crowd began pushing toward the exit streets. Kids were crying. Parents were screaming names. This was no frozen vision. This was happening. I grabbed Marcus. "We need the mic!" I shouted. "What? Are you crazy?" he said. "Trust me." We ran toward the burning stage. Firefighters were not there yet. The flames were still small but spreading. I jumped onto the edge of the stage and grabbed the microphone stand that had fallen. The speakers were still working. My hands shook. I turned the mic on. It made a loud screeching sound that caught everyone's attention. "Stop running!" I yelled. People paused for a second. "The fire will spread! Move to the open parking lot near the school! Don't crowd the small streets!" Some adults started repeating what I said. Others began guiding kids away from the booths. Marcus helped pull down one of the burning banners before it could reach a gas tank behind a food truck. Within minutes, sirens filled the air. Fire trucks arrived. Police cars blocked off the street. The fire was put out before it could destroy everything. Smoke rose into the night sky. No one died. No buildings collapsed. People were shaken but safe. As the firefighters sprayed water over the last small flames, I looked back at the chapel. Isabella stood near the entrance. The blue glow around her was fading. She looked smaller somehow. "You chose them," she said quietly. "I chose you too," I replied. "They will remember." The next few weeks were different. The fire department announced that old wiring and overloaded lights caused the accident. The town council decided to review safety rules for future fiestas. But that wasn't enough for me. I spoke to the mayor with Marcus and a few other students. We showed them the old article about Isabella Reyes. We told them how no memorial existed. At first, they brushed it off. It was a long time ago, one of them said. That's the problem, I answered. It shouldn't be forgotten. News of the recent fire spread online. People started talking about past accidents. Older residents began sharing stories their grandparents told them. Some even admitted that the chapel fire years ago was worse than the records showed. Slowly, the town agreed. A small stone memorial was built near the old chapel. It had her name carved clearly. Isabella Reyes. Beloved daughter. Forever remembered. On the next fiesta night, before the music started, the mayor stood on stage. He spoke about safety. He spoke about remembering the past. He said Isabella's name out loud. The entire crowd stood in silence for 1 full minute. No drums. No fireworks. Just silence. I felt a cool breeze brush past me. Not cold like before. Gentle. When the moment of silence ended, the fiesta began again. But this time, it felt different. Calmer. Safer. That night, as I walked home with Marcus, he nudged me. You think she's gone? I looked back at the chapel. The windows were dark. Peaceful. I think she's resting, I said. Weeks passed. Then months. I didn't see blue flames again. I didn't hear the slow drums at night. Life felt normal. Almost. Until one evening, near the end of summer, I walked past the chapel alone. The sun was setting. The sky was turning orange and purple. I noticed something strange. The memorial stone was cracked. Right down the middle. I stepped closer. The crack was thin but deep. Like something had pushed from inside. A soft drumbeat echoed in the distance. Boom. I froze. It wasn't fiesta season. There were no events planned. The street was empty. Boom. The sound came again. Slow. Heavy. From inside the chapel. The door creaked open by itself. A faint blue glow spilled onto the sidewalk. I felt that cold air brush against my face once more. Then I heard her voice. Soft. Almost sad. They are forgetting again. The drumbeat grew louder. And the blue light inside the chapel began to rise.